We will be reviewing the process of prescribing from the RxNT desktop application. To access RxNT, all you'll need to do is go up to your browser bar, typing in the 4 letters rxnt.com. Preferred browsers are Chrome and Firefox. After typing this into the browser bar, to the right, you're able to see Customer Login. This is where you'll go to enter in your username and password, and to the right of that is our 800 number. The support hours are Monday through Thursday from 9 to 6 and Fridays 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. We do have after-hours support and weekend support for critical issues only. You can also email them at support@rxnt.com. Once selecting Customer Login, it'll bring you to a screen where you'll enter in your username and password. If you forget your password, you'll come down, you'll enter in your username, and then select Forgot Password, which will send you a link to the email address that we have on file. You are able to bookmark this page, but prescribers, please remember that you'll need to utilize your password when sending out prescriptions for controlled substances. Once selecting Login, you'll come to the screen where you'll select e-prescribing on the right. Note at the top of your screen you can click Update Password to change your password at any time, and it will be valid for up to a year. Once we select e-prescribing, it brings us to our main dashboard within RxNT. This dashboard is really considered your home screen, and it can be found at the top on the menu bar by selecting the word Dashboard. From here, you're able to review any recently sent prescriptions, pending prescriptions. These are orders that have been queued up for a provider waiting to be reviewed. Refills that would come over from the pharmacy. Hospices typically do not have this activated, but it can be if you decide you'd like it done. That would be instead of having the pharmacy reach out via phone or fax, they would come over electronically. And then last would be any voided orders. Now note, in the center of our screen is a patient search, and it's a very common mistake to come here to search for a patient to create a new order. The patient search in the center of your screen is simply to look through the list of recent, pending, or refills. You will always come to the top right-hand corner where we see Global Patient Search to search for a patient by last name, first name, or any of the additional search fields listed below. Now going back to our menu bar at the top, if we look over to the left, we see Current Attending Provider. We have it listed as John Graham. If the nurses or staff need to change the provider for whom they're creating the prescription for, they're able to do it in 2 places, either here or within the actual patient dashboard. To the left, if we select Menu, from here we see Current User. It has the user's name and then physician. So for nurses and for staff, it'll have the user's name listed, and then with physician, it'll have a drop down indicating any providers that can be selected from to set up an order. So that's found here on the main dashboard, which is also our home screen. Coming over to our far right, before we go to search for a patient, we have Utilities. And with Utilities are all of your resource tools. Everyone has access to everything that's listed here. At the top is an RX report. It's an excellent tool to use. You're able to search for prescription information by date range, patient, provider, pharmacy, diagnosis, or medication. That report can be printed as well as uploaded to an Excel spreadsheet which can be encrypted to be sent. Coming down further, there's an online medication reference as well as the ability to open or track a support ticket, our contact info, our user manuals. I do want to select the user manuals. Within here, if we look over to the left, there's an iPhone manual, the Android manual, and further down is the standalone ERX manual. Now, our prescription manual is not Care Services specific, but rather just going over the general outline of how to create a prescription. Coming back up again and reviewing Utilities. Give it one moment here to refresh. Looking under Utilities, as we scroll down further, we also have the ability to create custom SIGs. So for frequently used medications, providers can create a custom SIG. We're also able further down for pharmacy management, you're able to search for local pharmacies and save them to a provider's favorites list. The system automatically saves favorites to the patient's list, So once an order is sent out on behalf of the patient to a pharmacy, it's saved to the list in a chronological order. Also beneath that, highlighted, is ID proofing. With that, if a provider has a token and you need to complete your ID proofing to obtain this token, you'll come in here and select ID proof. You'll complete the questions presented, and at the end, you'll indicate if you want a soft token, which is an app for your cell phone, or a hard token, which is like a key fob with a button on it that allows you to view the information and the PIN number required. So all of this is found under Utilities in the top right-hand corner. Just to review once again, we start off at rxnt.com, coming over to the right and selecting Customer Login. From here, we enter in username and password, or if you've forgotten your password, you'll enter in a username, and then from here, selecting Forgot Password. Next, it'll bring you to a screen where we're able to choose e-prescribing over to the right, as well as changing a password at the top. And then once selecting e-prescribing, it brings us to our main dashboard. Now over to the right, we're able to search for our patients. You will not search for a patient to create an order in the center of your screen. This is specific to the recent, pending, and refill tabs listed on the left. Coming up top, entering in the patient's name, and it can be minimal information, or you can put in full name, first name and last name, or with the drop-down additional search fields. Then selecting the icon, the magnifying glass, over to the far right. When selecting, we'll see our patient's name pull up over on the left, giving us their name. The ID number is RxNT's internal ID number, date of birth, chart number, address, and preferred phone. When selecting the patient, you will click on the link, and it will take you to our patient dashboard. From the patient dashboard, you'll see at the top, you always have the patient ID number. That's the RxNT ID number. If you ever were to call support and they requested the patient ID number, this is what they're referring to. The name of our patient, date of birth is listed, chart number coming from HPS Care Services. To the left, we have our patient's information highlighted in bold, and when you click on it, it would give you a quick face sheet of that information. Above that, there is an icon that indicates edit. This is not to edit the patient's information, but rather if, which is not a requirement, you wanted to upload a photo of the patient for ID purposes. Again, it is just an option, but I'm just showing you what it is in case you were to put your cursor there and see that it says edit. Now above that silhouette, we see current attending provider. If the staff or nurses need to change the provider for whom they're creating that order for, and they fail to do so on that opening dashboard screen, it can be done here as well. Top left, selecting menu, halfway down we see current user. It'll have the nurse or staff member's name and then the provider's name, and there'll be a drop down so the other provider can be selected. Now here we have our navigation bar. I'm going to start at the bottom and go up. We have allergies. From here, you're able to indicate any known allergies for a patient, and these get included in the interaction check. Selecting the plus sign allows you to add in an allergy by allergen group, name, or ingredient, or if we come over to our right, we can also indicate no known or no known drug allergies. And just a reminder to select Save in the far right-hand top or bottom corner. The Open File folder allows you to edit, and the red X and circle allows you to delete. Again, these are included in the interaction check when a prescription or order is being created. Above allergies is problems. Here, you're able to indicate the diagnosis for the patient, and typically for hospice, it would be a terminal diagnosis. Selecting the plus sign, you can then search by either description of the diagnosis or the code itself. And just a reminder to come over and select Save. You can also indicate no current problems as well. And then last, our medications. So with medications, when selected, you'll see in a moment there'll be 4 tabs at the top: current, previous, history, and voided. We're going to be starting with our current. So with the current tab, this will indicate the medications that the patient is currently taking. We can see the name of the medication, last RX date, start date, who wrote the med. To the far right, that can be edited or deleted. You're also able, once the medication's been written through the system, to simply highlight the line from the left and come over to refill. And from here, you can still edit that order as well as select a different pharmacy. Above that, we see Write RX, where we'll search for our medications. Coming over to the right a bit, Fave Drugs keeps a running list of any medications that have been prescribed through the system and creates a fave list for the provider. The favorite drug list follows the provider, not the patient. The next tab over is Previous. So with Previous, we'll see just the medications written through RX&T. So under Current, it shows medications that have been written through the system, as well as by clicking on the plus sign, you can add in any additional medications that the patient's taking. So if they're being prescribed by another provider, or it's known medications that they're taking, you can simply click the plus sign to add that in. It is not writing a prescription. It is just updating the current med list. So again, Current shows both medications manually added as well as written through the system. Previous, our next tab over to the right, is only going to show the medications written specifically through RX&T. Here, highlighted in blue, lets us see the active medications. So as we scroll down, we're able to see if the meds have been disabled or no longer current for the patient. So for instance, the lorazepam we see listed here, it's also listed on the current med list. If the patient is no longer going to be taking the medication, we can highlight it and come over to the far right and select Delete. When we do so, it gets removed. We see at the top confirming we want to delete it. It gets removed from the current med list, but it will always remain on the previous list. So when we go over to Previous, which again only shows the meds that are written through RX&T, the lorazepam is still listed there, but it's now in gray, the blue indicating active. We can also come over to the far right where it says cancel or discharge, and we can indicate why the patient is no longer taking the medication, as well as if you needed to cancel a med if it was sent erroneously to the pharmacy and it has gone through, but you needed to cancel that med. You can come here, click on cancel or discharge on the far right, put in the reason as to why. So for instance, if I select it, I can put in my reason as wrong strength, select save. It turns that medication a darker gray with the strike through, and over on the left here we can see the reason as to why. We can also, if needed, highlight, come back up to reinstate over on the right. It removes the strike through, and we can also highlight the medication and select add to current meds. So this is all found under the Previous tab. History tab, first time selected for a patient. Give it a moment to load here again. Actually, you would see a HIPAA consent on behalf of the patient, and that falls under any written or verbal medical consent given. It's taking your patient's demographics and looking for real-time claims medication history. So when selected, you'll be able to see both claims and fill data, but it is per the patient's current carrier with accurate demographics, and that pulls from SureScripts. And then last is our voided tab. That will just keep a history of any voided orders. So going back to current, when selecting current, from here, as you saw, we can either highlight a med from the left and select refill. We can also come up and search for a medication, or as the system is used, the Fave Drugs list will be created. So if I were to type in a medication, select enter, we can do a partial name as well, and you can also indicate by strength. Now notice over to our right we have a formulary key. This lets us view the medications that are preferred, on formulary, off formulary, not covered, and so forth. If on the left here we were to select a medication that was not on formulary, we have it with the X here, the system would actually prompt you to review that decision. So from here it would pull up a warning saying non-formulary medication selected, requires additional review and approval. From here we could either continue with this, and if we did, a notification would be sent to Care Services leadership, and they would then be able to review that selection. But you can still continue with creating that order. But we can also select Change Medication. Takes us back to that original screen where we can then select the medication that's on formulary, and that's indicated with the green box. The other options listed here is the blue circle with the number, which shows us a preferred medication. So we can simply click on the option, and from there it will drop us down on the same screen. We see down here drug information. We see it's a level 2 and there is a warning: this drug cannot be sent electronically. It just means that I do not have access, I don't have a token to send out a controlled substance electronically. So with that being said, if it's a provider who's logging in at this point, they'll still need to obtain a token. If it's the staff, this is normal. You will not use a token or obtain a token to send out controlled substances. So we have our drug info, we have SIG Builder, which guides us in writing the prescription with drug-specific drop-downs. We also have reference. We can print the information, giving us alternatives, common brands, warnings, uses, side effects. And here, blinking in red, we see interactions. When blinking in red, it lets us know that there is a possible moderate to severe interaction we need to be aware of. So as we scroll down, we're able to see the different categories, and we're able to make the decision if we're going to proceed with this medication or choose another medication. Beneath that, custom SIG could be created, which I had pointed out under Utilities, and it would be listed here. That's specific to a medication and strength. Beneath it would be a recommended SIG, and not every medication has a recommended SIG. Even if you selected it, you could still edit it if needed. And beneath that on the left, you can create a new SIG. Over on our right, we have our coverage, so we can see that the medication I chose is a preferred option. And beneath that, it also gives us alternatives that we can select. Coming back to our left, I'm going to use the recommended SIG of take 1 tablet by oral route every 4 hours as needed. From here, it is going to stop me if there are moderate to severe interactions to confirm that I had reviewed the interactions. At the top, we see accept and continue, choose another drug, view other medications in the same therapeutic class, or if we had skipped reviewing the interactions altogether, we could select view interaction. I'm going to go ahead and select accept and continue. From here at the top, I have my medication strength and unit. I have my dosage, and that's the recommended dosage, so of course I can always change that. Anything listed in white, you're able to revise. Beneath that, maximum daily dose can be indicated by strength or unit if required by your state. We can select PRN and put PRN description in. We're able to put in the quantity, our units, and then our day's supply. Beneath that, we see refills is grayed out, so we're not able to use that option. No C2s can be refilled. Use generic is the default, so for brand or dispense as written, you would unselect, and then it is advisable to enter that into the pharmacist note. If I had edited the information above, we could select Save SIG, and that would then be an option the next time we went to prescribe this specific medication and strength. Your pharmacist notes are instructions for your pharmacy. So as you can see here, your system will remember what you've previously typed. So I can put in hospice patient, fill stat, putting in our date, also putting in any kind of delivery instructions if being delivered. These again are the instructions for your pharmacy. Dosage at the top are the instructions for the patient on the order. Pharmacist notes are specific to the pharmacy. Reason for order does not need to be completed, and that will not transmit to the pharmacy. So remember to use the pharmacist notes box, not the reason for order. Diagnosis would pull from problems listed on the left. It is not a free text area. And then beneath that was scheduled. Now this is an option. When selected, you can indicate if you anticipate the patient needing the medication again. So with our C2s, we're not able to do a refill, but our second option here is schedule reoccurring. We could select our start date. From there, we could indicate when we needed that next reoccurring order to queue up for the provider. We could put in end after a specific date or no end date. So here, if we wanted to do this order plus another for a total of 2, in 3 days, the identical order for that medication will queue up in the provider's pending queue. It will not go out without the provider reviewing it and utilizing their token. Coming back, we see over to the left prescription 1. And if we look over to our right, we see add drug, continue, delete selected, and cancel. Notice there's no save button. Add drug is not to save what we've just completed, but rather to do an additional prescription or order for the same patient at this time. You can do as many orders as needed. Clicking on Add Drug allows you to then search for the next medication that you need to add to this order. Continue would be to go onto your pharmacy search. Delete Selected. If you did have multiple orders and wanted to remove one or more but not all, you could indicate which ones you wanted to remove. And last would be Cancel. And with Cancel, you would be starting over completely, still within this patient's profile, but anything that we had just created and not sent would be canceled. So remember, Add Drug is not to save, but to do additional orders for the same patient. Continue is on to our pharmacy search. Delete Selected would be to remove one or more of the orders, but not all of them, and Cancel is to start over completely. So I'm going to click on Continue, and from here it takes us to pharmacy search. It will default to the state where the patient is located, and over here highlighted in blue is Patient Favorites. So if the patient has had prescriptions go out through the system, it'll save those pharmacies and they'll be listed chronologically. To the left are Prescriber Favorites, and with that you would see any pharmacies that have been queued up and added to the prescriber's favorites. Prescriber favorites follow the prescriber. Patient favorites follow the patient, no matter who the prescriber is creating the order. If we're going to search for a local pharmacy, we can type in the name of the city, state, basically any of the blank fields that we see here, and then select Search. I do recommend not putting in a lot of information because it's a very specific system. Any change in the pharmacy name and it will not find it. So I recommend starting off with city or zip and then narrowing down your search from there. So if we then put in Kroger, select Search, and it pulls up specifically the pharmacy we're looking for. So from left to right we see name, address, city, state, and zip, phone, and fax, and very far right, the important indicator is the checkmark EPCS. If it were just to say retail, you would not be able to send a controlled substance of any level to this pharmacy. It means that they're not set up to receive controlled substances electronically. It would bounce back and require the provider to sign the order. So checkmark EPCS, standing for Electronic Prescribing Controlled Substance. If selected, that lets you know that the system on their side can accept the order when sent through RxMT. It does not mean that they have the medication in stock. So if it's something you typically call in advance to confirm, I recommend continuing to do so. Now on the left, we can check the box and click Add to My Favorites. And what it will do is add that pharmacy to the provider's favorites. Remember, when we select a pharmacy, it automatically adds it to the patient favorite pharmacies. When we go to select the pharmacy, it's not the checkbox, but clicking on the name. This is the same on the mobile app as well. At the top, we have Edit Patient, Change Pharmacy, Edit Prescription, Save as Pending. The print and save is listed here because I, as a demo provider, do not have a token to send controlled substances. So prescribers, you must get a token to have a send button here for controlled substances. And then Cancel. Cancel allows you to start over completely, but still here within the patient's profile. You should not need to edit the patient because they are being pushed over through the interface with HPS and Care Service. So again, you should not have to edit the patient, but you can if you need to change the pharmacy. Go back to edit the prescription, or if you needed to add on additional orders, you would select Edit Prescription. For the nursing staff, they, after reviewing the order, will select Save as Pending. It will then go into the provider's pending queue. Providers, once you have a token, you will not have the print and save here, but you'll have a send button. And when you click on send, a box will automatically pull up, requiring you to enter in your RxNT password and the PIN from the token. And cancel, as I mentioned, lets us start over completely. So as we scroll down, you'd be able to see provider info, pharmacy info, patient information, medication strength and unit, dosage quantity, day supply, comments. The signatures have been loaded in and digitized. To the right, we have interactions that can be reviewed. So once it's sent, it adds to the patient's current med list. Or if we were to add this in, save as pending, it would go into the provider's pending queue. It would not update the patient's current med list yet because it hasn't gone out. But if we come up top to Dashboard and select Dashboard, which was our home screen, the very first screen we saw when we logged in, we'll now see, if we look up top, under Pending, we'll see that order waiting for us to review. So from here, we would be able to see the patient info, the medication waiting to be sent, provider, and to the right, entry date and the intended pharmacy. Providers, you will click on the blue Rx box, and when you do so, it pulls up a copy of that prescription, and from here you still have the options at the top. When you select send, that's when a box will pull up, again requiring you to put in your RxNT password and then the 6-digit PIN generated by either your hard token or soft token. So when you either approve it and send it, it would move from pending and go to recent, or if you were to void it, it would move from pending as well. Under recent, just to point out, we don't see it listed here, but when orders are sent out initially, they're marked in yellow and say pending. And then once they do go through, they're marked in green with the date and time stamp of when they were transmitted. Just to review the process again, we'd come, once we're on the screen here, the dashboard, we'd come to our far right, we would type in our patient's name, select enter. Coming to the left, we would click on our patient's name and takes us to our patient dashboard. From here, we always have our patient's ID number, the RxNT ID number, name, date of birth, and chart number. We can either search, where it says to the left, search drug, or we can highlight a medication that's been previously prescribed and select refill. When we select refill, it takes us to our prescription edit screen, where even if we're refilling, we can edit everything but the medication and strength at the top. If everything is correct, we come over to the right and click on Continue. When we select on Continue, it defaults to the state where the patient's located, and here we have patient favorites, or we could go to the left and choose prescriber favorite pharmacies. We will click on the name of the pharmacy, and then it brings us to our prescription edit screen, where we have the ability to review the order. Coming up, we can make changes to pharmacy, edit the prescription, save as pending, cancel to start over completely, or if we're a prescriber, we'll have a send button here, and when we click send, it prompts us to put in our RxNT password and PIN. Once that's done, the medication would then move to our dashboard, and from here on the tab, we would see under recent, it would list that order. Or if we had placed it under pending, it would be listed under pending, waiting for the provider to approve. These medications are updated then once sent out in the EMR. This concludes the review of the RxNT e-prescribing application for HPS and